Need an afternoon pick-me-up?
Oh, lovely.
Christine's here with just the tonic you need. Afternoons on ABC Radio Perth and WA and on the ABC Listen app.
In fact, both of the West Australians you'll hear from this afternoon have spent a good chunk of their life trying to protect children. And up for the title of Australian of the Year is WA's finalist Paul Litherland. Now, he, in the last 5 years of his career as a police officer, worked in the Force's Technology Crime Unit, and it didn't take long for him to realise just how vulnerable kids were on the internet. Now, when I was at uni, I remember a cybersecurity lecturer saying to us, quote, "There is just as much crime happening on Perth streets as there are on Perth's computers, except the task force to prevent one is not as large as the other." Now, that was 10 years ago now, and I dare say much has changed, but I'll check with Paul. He decided to become a cybersecurity educator to fight cybercrime, to protect young people, and he was recognised with this magnificent title. He is waiting in a green room at Crown as well, ready to see whether he will take the title currently held by activist and sexual assault survivor Grace Tame. Good afternoon to you, Paul.
Hi Christine, how are you going?
Oh, I'm well. How are you feeling?
Nervous as hell, but we'll be all right. We'll be okay.
I like the honesty.
We'll get through it.
Yeah. I'm sure that you've faced worse. Now, what have the last few months been like for you?
Oh, it's been a bit of a blur, to be honest. It's very overwhelming. Great to be recognised, of course, Christine, but yeah, it's been a bit of a blur, but it's just great to be able to have my voice heard and to be recognised for the work I'm doing. So I'll take that for sure.
Yeah. I was thinking about this quote this morning. Which is harder, tackling crime on the streets or tackling crime online? What is it like online at the moment?
And that quote was brilliant, mate, honestly, and it reflects so much of what I'm on about and what I've been on about for the last 14 years is everything we know in the physical real world is governed, and there's rules in place, there's things to help people, but we just haven't had that online for so long, and as a result of that, the playgrounds that we are all playing in sort of don't have those protections. So as a result of that, the risks have continued to increase because there's been no control. So until we start seeing that happening, I'm going to continue to see the massive issues we're having today. And I actually applauded that quote as you mentioned it, because it is 100% correct.
Yeah. And has the size of the task force increased? Has the crime increased? What's it like?
The crimes have increased. I think the problem we have, Christine, is that the internet doesn't have any borders, so it's very hard for a task force to sort of police globally. I mean, I was very proud to be working at Tech Crime. At that stage, we were one of the most well-known and well-recognised cybercrime units in the world, because at that stage, Australia and the UK were the only ones who weren't using just fraud detectives to investigate online matters. So we've been so far behind the eight ball. So there's a lot of great work getting done out there by investigators and by other organisations such as eSafety and such, but we're still being faced by so many issues in regards to lack of legislation and lack of control over borders, for want of a better term.
Yeah, and so what changes would you like to see in that area?
I want to see just more accountability from the creators of our environments, and I always use a bit of a joke. I built a gazebo next to my pool last year, Christine, and the amount of hoops I had to jump through council to get it built were massive. But you can create an online environment, and all you need is a box that people have to tick. Terms and conditions, there you go. We're now devolved of our responsibility. I think we need to get better than that, because in the real world, we wouldn't accept that. So, and it's not about controlling freedom of speech. It's not about saying no to this and saying no to that. It's about just putting things in place where the most abhorrent content can be addressed, because we don't accept that in the real world, and that's what I'm all about.
Oh, it's so true. It's 3:45 on ABC Radio Perth and WA. My guest is WA's Australian of the Year, Paul Litherland, who is standing by for the national event. And look, I remember hearing you speak last year when you were named. You were saying how frustrated you were when you first started in the job. You felt like you couldn't do much to protect people online against scammers, bullying, revenge porn. We've come a little way and you said rather than deal with the aftermath, let's try and prevent it. So you moved into education. Are we learning? What do you think?
I think we are. There's some great educators out there. It's not only myself, across the country and globally as well. And this is where I think most of that drive is continuing to be really based in foundation in helping our kids, especially online. But more importantly, Christine, I'm an old bloke. I mean, I turned 50 last year, so I love talking to my kids because they're the ones who are going to drive this change. And one little niche I like hitting hard is the fact that, and I pick on Mark Zuckerberg because he's the largest networks out there. Kids have said, no, we don't want your networks anymore. We're not using them because you don't treat us respectfully.
Yeah.
So our kids are going to drive that change. So my message to the networks is if you don't get up to speed with that, you're going to bite yourself on the backside. So get up to speed, start taking action. And this is why I have so much faith in kids and the teens I speak to, is because they're going to drive that change. And that's what I'm so proud of.
Yeah, they are ethically driven, aren't they?
They are.
They are. Yeah, it's really refreshing to see it. And speaking of young people, when you were on News 24, you talked about gaming, online purchasing and how scammers are taking money from people that way. Kids are pretty smart. But how do you teach them to spot a legitimate product or not? This is a question I had come through on the text line earlier on as well. What's your advice, Paul?
Number one is trust your instincts. A lot of our kids sort of rush in. So if we can keep continuing to give them examples of risk, and this is why I think I have, without big note myself, having so much success, is I give the kids succinct examples where the victims have said to me, oh, Paul, I never thought that would happen to me. So empower our kids to learn and grow in those environments, listen to their mates, report content, and just don't rush in, because a lot of them are doing that, and it's not until after the fact they'll do investigation and realise, oh, why was I so silly to get caught out? So it's about continuing to really assess their online environments. But I mean, a lot of kids aren't reporting, so it's hard to get those experiences, Christine.
It is.
I mean, we had $176 million leave our shores last year in fraud, and that's reported fraud. And 7% of that was with children under the age of 15 years of age. So those little niches, as I said, in regards to giving them that experience of learning, they can tell their mates, they can tell their brothers and sisters, and we can grow and learn from that.
Yeah. What are some of the other threats facing our kids online these days, Paul? You would have incredible insight into this.
Grooming is still pretty big. One of the frustrations I find, especially through social networking, Christine, is the ease for people to approach our kids online now. That never really happened in the past. Predators or people who are being dodgy were always confined to an area as such, and we come back to that original point of real world versus online world is our kids can be targeted in so many ways through so many different avenues, so they're going to increase their vulnerabilities. So grooming is pretty big. We're still seeing obviously bullying, which is what I want to really address over the next 18 months. We still don't have legislation in this state which is specific to cyberbullying. Now that shocks a lot of parents. Wow. They go, oh, surely we've got laws in WA. Well, we don't. We've just got a mismatch of legislation, federal and state, that are supposed to be designed to police a problem which is almost at epidemic levels. So it's frustrating.
What would legislation look like in that regard when it comes to bullying? What protections do kids need?
For me, it'd be a scaled piece of legislation where, and don't get me wrong, and this is important to me, I've never been about, nor will I ever be about arresting or charging children, no way in the world. But if a kid goes to a primary school or a high school and he's been kicked out of 5 already and he keeps bullying, then let's put something in place where, I don't know, the school can go, look mate, we're now compelled by legislation to get you and your family to go see a counsellor, get some assistance. Okay, if it's your 5th offence, if you don't care, then okay, let's put something in place to give you guidance and understanding. So by the time you're 16, 17, 18, we've hopefully shifted a culture. Instead, we're just having nothing, or we're having a federal charge.
Yeah.
I'm not going to charge a 12-year-old who might be bullying a kid online with a federal offence. So this is where those issues need to be addressed. And whether we like it or not, we have to address them. because victims are going unheard.
That's right. And you often wonder where they are learning that bullying behaviour or what has caused that. And if you fix the cause, you hopefully fix the flow-on effect.
And that comes back so much to our playgrounds again, Christine. Our kids are being exposed to so much more than they ever did in the past. And they push the envelope. Kids, that's what they do. I remember... you're not as old as me, Christine, at Countdown. I remember
You're
Countdown.
not old either, just for the record, Paul.
Now, my mum wouldn't let me watch Countdown, so I'd sneak in there and I'd record it on a Sunday night and I'd hide the video under the couch, and I'd come back on Monday and watch it. Now, that didn't make mum a bad parent. That didn't make me a bad kid, but it just showed you how we can be exposed to risk. So let's take action to minimise and address these issues, because kids stuff up. That's what they designed to do.
Oh,
so
you rebel. Countdown. It's a gateway drug. Hey, you've got to be careful with it. It's wild. So, look, talking about this award, this is a huge night. I mean, Grace Tame changed the national conversation around grooming and child sexual abuse in Australia.
Yep.
She's had an incredible year. If you were to win tonight, what would you like to achieve? What's on the wish list, Paul?
The big one for me is, okay, let's start really pushing nationally and globally for people who are creating online environments to start taking more responsibility for what I call ethical design or safety by design. And I do get a bit of blowback. As an example, Christina, so people go, well, okay, people have crashes, yet you don't blame car manufacturers for people are speeding. So why aren't you blaming the speeder? I get that 100%, but you can't release a car into this country without strict guidelines.
Yes.
Seatbelts, airbags and 5-star.
And usually there's some kind of investigation
100%.
into whether there was something on the road
100%.
that influenced that accident. So people are still held accountable.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, but those rules and restrictions that have been put in place in car manufacturers haven't impacted on our ability to have fun in cars and to enjoy it. So for me, it's about let's push the onus. And I speak about a website, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, Christine, Omegle, which is a video chat service. Now, this website has been created out of the US, and its terms and conditions state simply one sentence: users enter at their own peril.
Oh.
Now, that's his protection. I challenge anyone to say, would that be accepted if that same sign was at the front of Adventure World?
No.
No way in the world. So why has this been happening? Let's get some action taken to minimise it. That's my goal, and that's why I'm hoping this helps.
There's so much to be done, and I hope you get all the support you need, Paul, because you are protecting our kids. It's been so nice to speak to you this afternoon.
Likewise, thank you.
Have fun tonight.
All the best, Christine. All the very best. Thank you.
Paul Litherland, counting down to the start of the national ceremony for the Australian of the Year, which you will hear from 4 o'clock. That's why I'm still here. He's an incredible force and used to be a police officer and then moved into cybersecurity education. So we'll see if he takes out the award.